Hi, I'm Malcolm Roberts, and I want to come to you today with some really positive news. Two bits of news, actually. And the first is I want to congratulate a journalist, an economist journalist, Judith Sloan, writing in News Corporation. Listen to this, last Saturday. She said, last week, a spokesman for the US government summed up that country's refusal to sign the UN Compact on Immigration by labeling it as, quote, an effort by the United Nations to advance global governance at the expense of the sovereignty right of states. It's now in the mainstream. 2 years ago, when I raised this topic, I was ridiculed and rubbished. Pauline Hanson has been on this topic for 22 years. 22 gutsy, courageous, honest years. When I first started raising this 6 to 8 years ago, it was as a result of my investigations into the climate rort, the UN's climate rort, because that's where I learned about this. All roads lead to the UN. All roads lead to global governance, a dictatorship unelected. Listen to this. It sounds so sweet, so nice. This is from the president of the conference, the head of the conference at the United Nations on the weekend. While stressing the non-binding nature of the compact, non-binding, the head of the conference, Louise Arbour, declared, quote, the compact will remain the reference for all future initiatives dealing with cross-border human mobility. It is the implementation of the compact that will forever change the way the international community manages human mobility. That's code word for we will destroy national borders. We will make them irrelevant because we will have a global governance. It's done through deceit. That's lovely language, but it's deceitful because then the rules are implemented often without going through parliaments and congresses, national governments. But then Judith Sloan continued, quote, but the critical aspect of the conference that Arbour didn't mention in her victory speech was the failure of many significant countries to sign up to the compact, including Australia. And by the way, that was because one nation raised this and shouted it from the rooftops, and because honest journalists like Alan Jones shouted it out, and Morrison had no alternative but to turn it down. So Judith continues, in fact, the UN had pulled out of negotiations late last year, 12 months ago. The list of other non-signatories includes Austria, Italy, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Latvia, Poland, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Israel, Chile, and the Dominican Republic. In Belgium, there has been so much disagreement about the compact that the coalition government effectively has collapsed. People are waking, and I want to thank the support we've been getting on this Facebook page because we've been educating people for the last 18 months solidly. And now we know, whether it's climate change, industrial destruction of industry that is, farming, property rights, immigration, people now know that it's the bloody UN that's doing it. Think about this sequence of events. 1975, the UN's Lima Declaration, signed by the Labour Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, and in the following year, 1976, ratified by the Liberal Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser. Gutted industry. Gutted our industry. And that's exactly what it was designed to do. 1992, the Rio de Janeiro Declaration, 21st century global governance, based on three lies: biodiversity, sustainability, and climate change. Lovely words. How could you fail but be taken in? But what biodiversity means is they will come and steal your property because they've got to protect that fungus, that grub, that critter, that animal, that plant. So off with human rights. Secondly, sustainability. How could anyone disagree with sustainability? We all want things that are sustainable. So what the UN does is it writes rules that get bypassed national parliaments, bypass state governments, and just get implemented at local, state and federal level through bureaucrats and through tying money to grants. And when you recognise that Blonde Shire Council, for example, told us that 73% of their annual revenue comes from federal government grants, it means that Canberra money is controlling the shires, controlling the regional councils right around this country. And the bureaucrats are tying conditions to those grants. That's how it's done. Lovely words, but the thing is with UN sustainability, such things are not sustainable without without subsidies, they're not sustainable. And then the third aspect, to destroy national governments and make them subservient to a global governance, is climate change. Because the carbon dioxide I'm breathing out now and that you're breathing out is affecting people in Chile and Peru and Argentina. So that's how and then they're dressing up many things to do with energy, resources, water, sovereignty, immigration, through rules that bypass parliaments. 1996 was the Kyoto Protocol. Property rights were smashed under the guise of climate change. And John Howard started the destruction, his government started the destruction of farmers' property rights that we're now paying for right across our country. 2015, the Paris Agreement. And I will remember something else that happened towards the end of 2015, right near the end of the sitting year calendar. I wasn't in Parliament. It was before I went to Parliament. But Greg Hunt pushed through the lower house and the Senate his safeguard mechanisms, which were effectively a mechanism supposedly to enhance direct action, but was in reality a way of making sure that they could put in an emissions trading scheme, have a carbon price in this country. Again, deceitfully done, quietly, just shoved through the Parliament. And now Bill Shorten is talking about using that same mechanism to bring in a carbon tax. A tax on carbon dioxide, the air we breathe. And now, after the Paris Agreement, where there was no real agreement and every country was allowed to go off and come up with its own rules, now we see what's really going on in Katowice, Poland, where UN is meeting to hammer out rules that must be obeyed. And our government is already dopey enough to be saying, to have legislated through the renewable energy target and many other provisions and many other agencies the control of energy in this country to comply with the climate agreement it stupidly made in Paris. But Bill Shorten, he is going to bring in a carbon tax. He is also going to ramp up the renewable energy target, which is destroying our country at the current 14%. The Liberals want to take it to 28%. Bill Shorten wants to take it to 50%. That's even higher than South Australia, which has destroyed itself at 47% renewable energy target. And the dopey Greens, the dishonest Greens, the lazy, incompetent Greens, they want to bring in a target of around 95%. Insane. This is how it's done. Water, immigration, human rights, climate, energy, property rights. This has all been pushing on since 1944 with the formation of the UN. Fortunately, people are waking up. So join us and support us, please, in calling for an AusEXIT. Let's get the Australia out of the UN and get the UN out of our country. Thank you.